Admiral Kexthul clicked his mandibles as he studied the holographic display floating before him. The three-dimensional images showed detailed scans of human warships captured by Zephyrian scout vessels over the past 3 cycles. Each ship looked like a massive block of metal covered in weapons and armor plating that seemed unnecessarily thick. "Look at these primitive designs," Kexthul said to his tactical staff gathered around the war table. "The humans build their ships like floating fortresses. They move slowly through space and rely on heavy armor instead of speed and agility." The other officers in the room nodded in agreement as they examined the human vessel specifications. Commander Veltar pointed at one particularly large ship on the display. "This one masses over 1 million tons. Most of that weight appears to be armor plating and projectile weapons. Their technology is at least 200 cycles behind our own." Kexthul had spent his entire military career studying the combat doctrines of various species across the galaxy. The hegemony had conquered 47 worlds using superior tactics and advanced energy weapons. Every species they encountered eventually fell to the same proven strategy: fast strike craft equipped with plasma lances that could overwhelm enemy defenses through speed and precision. The Zephyrian fleet consisted of sleek vessels designed for maximum maneuverability. Their hulls were crafted from lightweight materials that allowed for rapid acceleration and tight turning radiuses. Each ship carried powerful plasma cannons that could slice through most known armor types with surgical precision. The entire philosophy behind their military design focused on striking fast and striking hard before the enemy could respond effectively. The humans appear to favor prolonged engagements. Kexthul continued his analysis. Their ships carry enormous ammunition reserves and multiple backup systems. This suggests they expect their battles to last for extended periods, rather than quick, decisive strikes. Intelligence reports from the outer colonies painted a clear picture of human military capabilities. Their warships used primitive kinetic weapons that fired solid projectiles instead of energy beams. The humans seemed obsessed with building redundant systems and thick armor, instead of developing more advanced technology. Their combat doctrine appeared wasteful and inefficient compared to the elegant solutions developed by more advanced species. The Council of 17 Species had debated the human question for months. Some members suggested diplomatic contact to assess their intentions. Others recommended immediate military action to prevent the humans from expanding further into contested space. Admiral Kexthul had been chosen to lead the military assessment because of his extensive experience with primitive species. "The humans control 12 star systems," reported intelligence officer Zixnall. "Their colonies are heavily defended but use outdated technology. Each system contains multiple orbital defense platforms armed with the same projectile weapons as their ships. They seem to believe that overwhelming firepower can compensate for technological inferiority." Kexthul studied the tactical projections showing potential battle scenarios. Computer simulations indicated that a standard Zephyrian fleet could overwhelm human defenses through coordinated plasma lance attacks. The human ships were too slow to effectively pursue Zephyrian vessels and too cumbersome to avoid concentrated fire from multiple directions. "Prepare the third battle fleet for immediate deployment," Kexthul ordered. 200 vessels should be sufficient to demonstrate Zephyrian superiority. "We will target their outer colony at Kepler Station and destroy any defending forces." The Admiral's confidence stemmed from decades of successful campaigns against species that had similar technological limitations. The key to victory lay in exploiting the human weakness for heavy static defenses. Zephyrian strike craft could dance around the slow human ships while their plasma weapons gradually wore down even the thickest armor plating. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant as his communications officer handed him the priority transmission. The message was brief and direct. "Zephyrian fleet detected approaching Kepler Station. Intercept and engage. Protect civilian population at all costs." Morrison read the tactical summary attached to the orders. Long-range sensors had detected over 200 alien vessels moving in perfect formation toward the outer colonies. The ships appeared to be using some form of advanced propulsion that allowed them to travel faster than anything in the human fleet. "How long until they reach Kepler Station?" Morrison asked his navigation officer. 18 hours at their current speed," Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez replied from her station. "We can intercept them in approximately 14 hours if we maintain maximum burn." Morrison studied the enemy fleet composition displayed on his tactical screen. The alien vessels were smaller than human ships but vastly outnumbered his single battleship. Each enemy craft appeared to be armed with energy weapons that could potentially penetrate human armor, if given enough time to focus their fire. The captain walked across his bridge examining the faces of his crew. These men and women had trained for years to operate the most advanced warship in the human fleet. The USS Defiant represented the pinnacle of human military engineering with its thick armor, plating, and massive weapon arrays designed to engage multiple targets simultaneously. All hands prepare for combat operations, Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. We are about to face an enemy that believes they understand human military capabilities. They are about to learn that our ships were built for exactly this type of engagement. Commander Ben Parker coordinated with the engineering teams to ensure all systems were operating at peak efficiency. The ship's massive reactors could power every weapon system simultaneously while maintaining full defensive capabilities. Human engineers had designed the Defiant to fight outnumbered and survive prolonged battles against superior numbers. Lieutenant Chris Davis supervised the missile battery preparations as automated loading systems moved thousands of projectiles into firing position. Each missile carried multiple warheads designed to overwhelm enemy point defenses through sheer numbers rather than sophisticated technology. The crew moved through their pre-combat routines with practiced efficiency. They had trained extensively for scenarios involving hostile alien contact. Human military doctrine assumed that any first contact situation would likely result in combat since peaceful species rarely developed interstellar travel capabilities. Morrison returned to his command chair as the ship accelerated toward the approaching alien fleet. The next few hours would determine whether human military philosophy could match advanced alien technology. The crew of the USS Defiant was about to discover if their training and equipment could overcome seemingly impossible odds. The Zephyrian fleet continued its approach toward Kepler Station, unaware that they were about to encounter a military doctrine unlike anything in their extensive combat experience. Admiral Kexthul remained confident that his superior numbers and advanced technology would easily overwhelm the primitive human defenders. The Zephyrian fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, with their sleek vessels gleaming like silver daggers against the starfield. Admiral Kexthul stood in the command center of his flagship, watching the tactical display show 200 ships arranged in precise attack patterns. Each vessel had been positioned according to established doctrine that had proven successful across dozens of previous campaigns. Sensors detect human colony dead ahead, reported his operations officer. Population appears to be approximately 50,000 civilians with minimal orbital defenses. No sign of military vessels in the immediate area. Kexthul nodded with satisfaction as he studied the tactical readouts. The human colony looked exactly like intelligence reports had predicted, with heavy static defenses and outdated weapon systems. The orbital platforms appeared to be armed with the same primitive projectile weapons that human ships used for their primary armament. Wait, the sensor operator called out with obvious confusion in his voice. I am detecting a massive energy signature approaching from the outer system. Single vessel on direct intercept course with our fleet. The main display shifted to show long-range sensor data, revealing a human warship accelerating toward them at maximum speed. The vessel appeared to be one of their larger battleships with thick armor plating covering every surface and weapon emplacements positioned across the entire hull. Mass readings indicate approximately 1 million tons, the sensor operator continued his report. The vessel appears to be some kind of mobile weapons platform designed for heavy combat operations. It is not attempting any evasive maneuvers and continues on direct approach. Admiral Kexthul studied the approaching human ship with growing interest rather than concern. The vessel was exactly what intelligence reports had described. A slow, heavily armored battleship that relied on brute force instead of tactical sophistication. The fact that it was approaching alone against 200 Zephyrian ships demonstrated the typical human tendency toward wasteful sacrifice. Single human vessel against our entire fleet, Kexthul commented to his tactical staff. Either they are incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Prepare to engage when they enter maximum plasma lance range. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant as his ship closed the distance to the alien fleet. The tactical display showed enemy vessels arranged in what appeared to be a standard attack formation with smaller craft positioned for flanking maneuvers while larger ships held the center position. Enemy fleet composition appears to favor speed and maneuverability over heavy armor, reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her tactical station. Their vessels show minimal armor plating and appear to be designed for rapid strike operations. Morrison nodded as he studied the alien ship designs displayed on his screen. The enemy vessels looked like racing ships compared to the massive bulk of his battleship. Their sleek hulls suggested they relied on avoiding enemy fire, rather than absorbing it through heavy defensive systems. All weapons systems report, ready for combat, announced Commander Ben Parker from the weapons control station. Primary railgun batteries loaded with tungsten penetrator rounds. Secondary missile systems armed and prepared for rapid fire sequences. The captain walked across his bridge examining the crew positions as each officer prepared for the coming engagement. These men and women had trained extensively for exactly this type of scenario where they would face superior numbers using advanced alien technology. This is Captain Morrison speaking to all hands, he announced over the ship communication system. We are about to show these aliens what human engineering can accomplish when we put our minds to building something that can take punishment and dish it out in return. The distance between the fleets continued to shrink as both sides maintained their approach courses. The Zephyrian vessels showed no signs of changing their formation while the human battleship continued its direct acceleration toward the center of the enemy fleet. Range to target now at maximum effective distance for enemy energy weapons, reported the navigation officer. We should begin receiving incoming fire within the next few minutes. Admiral Kexthul ordered his fleet to begin the attack as soon as the human ship entered maximum range for their plasma lance systems. Dozens of bright energy beams lanced out from the Zephyrian vessels, striking the approaching human battleship. Across its forward armor sections, the plasma lances struck the USS Defiant's forward shields, creating brilliant flashes of dissipating energy as the defensive systems absorbed and redirected the incoming fire. The ship's thick armor plating glowed briefly where direct hits penetrated the shield matrix but showed no signs of significant damage. Forward shields holding at 80% capacity, reported the defensive systems officer. Armor plating is absorbing energy weapon impacts with minimal penetration. All primary systems remain fully operational. Captain Morrison watched the tactical display as enemy fire continued to strike his ship without causing serious damage. Human defensive systems had been specifically designed to handle directed energy weapons based on theoretical models of advanced alien technology. Return fire with all primary batteries, Morrison ordered. Target their lead formations and maintain continuous fire until they are destroyed. The USS Defiant's response was immediate and devastating, as dozens of railgun turrets opened fire simultaneously. Tungsten slugs traveling at significant fractions of light speed crossed the distance between fleets in seconds before striking the alien vessels with tremendous kinetic force. The first Zephyrian ships to receive human fire simply disintegrated as railgun projectiles punched through their hulls like they were made from paper. The sleek alien vessels had no defense against solid projectiles moving at such incredible velocities. Impossible, Admiral Kexthul muttered as he watched 3 of his cruisers explode in rapid succession. Their weapons are primitive kinetic systems. How are they generating such destructive force against our hulls? The tactical officer provided readings from the destroyed ship showing that human projectiles carried more kinetic energy than most species used in their primary weapon systems. The railgun rounds had simply overwhelmed the alien hull materials through sheer physical force. Admiral, we have lost 12 ships in the opening exchange, reported his operations officer. The human vessel shows minimal damage from our plasma lance attacks, while their return fire is proving extremely effective against our fleet. Kexthul stared at his tactical display with growing realization that his intelligence assessments had been completely wrong about human military capabilities. Admiral Kexthul watched in growing horror as his advanced squadrons were systematically destroyed by the single human battleship. The USS Defiant absorbed plasma lance hits that should have crippled any vessel, while its return fire punched through Zephyrian hulls as if they were made from decorative materials instead of military-grade armor. Status report on the human vessel, Kexthul demanded from his tactical officer, who was frantically analyzing sensor data from the ongoing engagement. The human ship has Sustained 47 direct hits from our plasma lance systems, the officer reported with obvious disbelief in his voice. Their armor plating appears to be specifically designed to absorb and dissipate directed energy attacks. Hull integrity remains at approximately 90% despite continuous bombardment. The admiral studied his tactical display showing the positions of both fleets as the battle continued to develop. 23 Zephyrian vessels had already been destroyed while the human battleship showed only minor damage to its outer armor sections. The rate of destruction was completely unacceptable and threatened the entire success of the mission. How are their projectile weapons generating such destructive force? Kexthul asked his science officer who had been analyzing the human attack patterns since the engagement began. The humans appear to be using electromagnetically accelerated projectiles traveling at approximately 15% of light speed, came the technical analysis. Each projectile carries more kinetic energy than our primary plasma lance systems. Their weapons are designed to defeat armor through sheer physical force rather than energy transfer. Captain Jake Morrison ordered his ship to advance deeper into the alien formation, as his weapons continued their devastating barrage against the enemy fleet. The Zephyrian vessels were fast and maneuverable, but their light construction made them extremely vulnerable to solid projectile impacts. All batteries maintain continuous fire, Morrison commanded from his position on the bridge. Show them what sustained bombardment looks like when you have the industrial capacity to build weapons that can keep firing for hours. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez coordinated the main gun batteries as automated loading systems cycled thousands of tungsten rounds into firing position. Human weapons had been designed for prolonged engagements with mechanical systems that could maintain high rates of fire without overheating or mechanical failure. Primary railgun systems operating at optimal efficiency, Rodriguez reported. Ammunition reserves at 85%. We can maintain current fire rate for approximately 6 more hours of continuous combat operations. The concept of 6 hours of continuous combat seemed to shock the alien fleet as their formations began to show signs of confusion and disorder. Zephyrian military doctrine called for swift, decisive engagements that lasted minutes rather than hours of grinding attrition warfare. Commander Ben Parker supervised the defensive systems as plasma lance fire continued to strike the battleship's hull. Human armor had been specifically designed to handle directed energy weapons based on theoretical studies of advanced alien technology conducted over decades of preparation. Forward. Armor sections showing heat buildup from energy weapon impacts, Parker reported to the bridge crew. Cooling systems are managing thermal loads within acceptable parameters. All defensive systems remain fully operational. The USS Defiant had been built with multiple redundant systems that allowed the ship to continue fighting even after sustaining significant damage. Human engineers understood that space combat would likely involve prolonged exchanges where the side with better endurance would ultimately prevail. Lieutenant Chris Davis coordinated the missile batteries as hundreds of guided projectiles launched from vertical launch systems distributed throughout the ship's hull. Each missile carried multiple warheads designed to overwhelm enemy point defense systems through sheer numbers rather than sophisticated countermeasures. Missile launch successful, Davis announced as his screen showed the projectiles accelerating toward their targets. Impact in 37 seconds. Enemy point defense systems appear to be struggling with the volume of incoming projectiles. The Zephyrian fleet had been designed around the concept of avoiding enemy fire rather than intercepting it. Their point defense systems could handle small numbers of incoming threats but were quickly overwhelmed by the massive missile salvos launched by the human battleship. Admiral Kexthul realized that his fleet was facing a completely different military philosophy than anything they had encountered before. The humans had not developed their weapons to fight other humans using similar technology. Instead, they had designed their military systems assuming they would face technologically superior opponents with advanced energy weapons. The humans have built their ships to fight us specifically, Kexthul announced to his command staff as another wave of Zephyrian vessels exploded under human missile fire. Their armor is designed to resist plasma weapons while their projectile systems are optimized to defeat light hull construction. The realization struck the alien commander that human intelligence about galactic Military technology was far more extensive than anyone had assumed. The human battleship was not a primitive design, but rather a carefully engineered response to the specific strengths and weaknesses of advanced alien warfare. "Sir, we have now lost 61 vessels," reported the tactical officer. "The human ship continues to advance into our formation while maintaining maximum fire rate. Their crew appears to consider this level of combat intensity as normal operations." The human battleship moved through the Zephyrian fleet like a mobile fortress, designed specifically for this type of engagement. Every aspect of its design, from the thick armor plating to the massive weapon arrays, had been optimized for prolonged combat against superior numbers. Morrison studied his tactical display as his ship continued to devastate the alien fleet through sheer firepower and defensive capability. Human military doctrine was simple and effective. Build ships that could absorb tremendous punishment while delivering even greater destruction to enemy forces. "Enemy formation is beginning to break apart," reported the navigation officer. "Multiple alien vessels are attempting to disengage from the combat zone. Should we pursue them or maintain current position?" The captain considered his options as he watched the alien fleet struggle to cope with sustained human firepower. The Zephyrian vessels had been designed for quick strikes and rapid withdrawals, but found themselves trapped in exactly the type of grinding attrition warfare that humans had perfected through centuries of conflict. "Maintain current course and continue engagement," Morrison ordered. "We are going to show them what total warfare looks like when conducted with industrial efficiency." The battle entered its fourth hour with Admiral Kexthul finally understanding the magnitude of his miscalculation. The hegemony's military doctrine had been built on the assumption that all advanced species would develop similar solutions to space combat, using fast vessels with energy weapons for precision strikes. They had never encountered a species that treated warfare as a test of pure industrial capacity and overwhelming destructive power. "Admiral, we have now lost 112 vessels," his tactical officer reported with barely controlled panic in his voice. "The human battleship has sustained over 200 direct plasma lance hits, but continues to operate at full combat effectiveness. Their armor appears to actually become more efficient at energy absorption as it heats up." Kexthul studied the tactical display showing the devastation wrought by the single human warship. The USS Defiant had carved a path of destruction through his fleet, while its crew seemed to view the prolonged engagement as routine combat operations rather than a desperate survival situation. "How much ammunition does that monster carry?" Kexthul asked his intelligence officer, who had been frantically analyzing human weapon systems throughout the battle. "Based on observed fire rates and projectile counts, we estimate the human vessel carries enough ammunition for approximately 12 hours of continuous combat at current intensity levels," came the devastating analysis. "Their missile systems appear to have similar endurance capabilities." The concept of 12 hours of sustained combat was completely alien to Zephyrian military thinking. Their doctrine called for swift, decisive engagements lasting minutes rather than prolonged battles that could drag on for half a day. The human battleship represented a completely different approach to warfare that the hegemony had never considered. Captain Morrison walked across his bridge, examining damage control reports as his crew worked to maintain combat effectiveness. Plasma lance hits had burned through several armor sections, but the ship's modular design allowed for rapid repairs even during active combat operations. "Engineering reports all primary weapon systems remain operational," announced Commander Frank Miller from his damage control station. "Hull breaches in sections 7 through 12 have been sealed. Cooling systems are managing thermal buildup from enemy energy weapons. Within normal parameters, the USS Defiant had been designed with the understanding that space combat would involve extended exchanges where system reliability would prove more important than initial technological superiority. Human engineers had built redundant systems throughout the ship to ensure weapon systems could continue operating even under heavy damage. Ammunition status report Morrison requested from his weapons officer as the battle continued around them. "Primary railgun ammunition at 62% capacity," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez. "Missile systems at 58%. We can maintain current fire rate for approximately 8 more hours if the enemy continues to engage." The captain nodded with satisfaction as he studied the tactical display showing the continuing Destruction of alien vessels. Human military philosophy emphasized building weapons that could operate reliably for extended periods, rather than achieving maximum initial performance that might degrade over time. Admiral Kexthul watched helplessly as his remaining ships attempted various tactical maneuvers designed to exploit perceived weaknesses in the human vessel. Every standard hegemony tactic had failed against the human battleship, which seemed specifically designed to counter advanced alien warfare techniques. The human ship is repositioning to prevent our withdrawal, reported his navigation officer. They appear to be attempting to maintain contact with our fleet, rather than allowing us to disengage from combat. This revelation struck Kexthul as the most terrifying aspect of human military doctrine. The alien fleet wanted to withdraw and regroup, but the human captain was actively preventing their escape while continuing the methodical destruction of Zephyrian vessels. Sir, 3 of our fastest cruisers are attempting to break through their defensive perimeter, the tactical officer announced. If they can damage the human ship's engines, we might be able to create an opening for fleet withdrawal. The Zephyrian strike cruisers accelerated toward the USS Defiance engine sections using their superior speed to avoid the battleship's main weapons. Their plasma lances focused on what appeared to be the most vulnerable systems in an attempt to disable human mobility. Lieutenant Chris Davis coordinated the point defense systems as alien vessels approached his ship's stern sections. Human defensive weapons had been designed primarily to intercept high-velocity projectiles but could easily track and engage the relatively slow alien strike craft. Point defense systems engaging enemy cruisers, Davis reported as automated weapons tracked the approaching alien vessels. Multiple hits confirmed. Enemy ships are taking heavy damage from defensive fire. The Zephyrian cruisers discovered that human point defense systems could deliver devastating firepower against small, fast-moving targets. Their light hull construction offered no protection against the eye. Rapid-fire weapons designed to intercept incoming missiles and projectiles. Commander Ben Parker supervised the weapons coordination as the main batteries continued their systematic destruction of the alien fleet. Human fire control systems allowed every weapon on the ship to engage different targets simultaneously, while maintaining maximum accuracy. Enemy fleet strength now down to approximately 40 vessels, Parker reported to the bridge. Remaining ships appear to be attempting coordinated withdrawal, but our positioning is preventing effective disengagement. Captain Morrison studied the battle situation as his ship continued to dominate the engagement. Through superior firepower and defensive capability, the alien fleet had been reduced to less than 20% of its original strength, while his battleship remained fully operational. Maintain current engagement pattern, Morrison ordered. Continue systematic destruction of enemy vessels until they surrender or are completely eliminated. Do not allow any ships to escape and report our capabilities to their leadership. The USS Defiant represented human military thinking at its most fundamental level. Build weapons that could deliver overwhelming firepower, while constructing defenses that could absorb tremendous punishment. The result was a warship capable of engaging superior numbers while maintaining combat effectiveness over extended periods. Admiral Kexthul realized that his fleet was trapped in a battle they could not win against an opponent they did not understand. The humans had revealed a vision of warfare that made previous galactic military doctrine appear like elaborate games rather than serious combat. The final phase of the battle began as the surviving Zephyrian vessels made one last desperate attempt to escape the human battleship that had systematically destroyed their entire fleet. Admiral Kexthul coordinated the remaining 32 ships in a coordinated assault aimed at the USS Defiance engine sections, hoping to disable its mobility and create an opening for withdrawal. All remaining vessels focus fire on the human ship's propulsion systems. Kexthul ordered through the fleet communication network. If we can damage their engines, we might be able to break contact and retreat to safe distance. The alien ships accelerated toward the human battleship using their superior speed and maneuverability in one final attempt to exploit what they hoped might be a weakness in the human vessel's defensive coverage. Plasma lances from 32 ships focused their combined firepower on the rear sections of the USS Defiant. Captain Morrison watched his tactical display as the remaining enemy vessels attempted their Coordinated attack on his ship's engines. The alien formation looked desperate as they committed their last reserves in what appeared to be a suicide mission against his heavily defended battleship. Enemy vessels are concentrating fire on our engine sections, reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her weapons station. Point defense systems are engaging, but the volume of incoming fire is higher than previous attacks. The human point defense systems activated automatically as alien vessels entered their engagement range. Rapid-fire weapons designed to intercept missiles and projectiles easily tracked the relatively slow Zephyrian cruisers as they approached the battleship's stern. M-Wint. Defense systems engaging multiple targets, announced Lieutenant Chris Davis as automated weapons began, destroying the approaching alien vessels. Enemy ships are taking heavy casualties from defensive fire. Their hull construction appears unable to withstand our point defense weapons. The Zephyrian attack failed completely as their light vessels disintegrated under human defensive fire. The alien ships had been designed to avoid enemy weapons rather than survive direct hits from rapid fire. Defensive systems optimized for destroying small, fast-moving targets. Admiral Kexthul watched in horror as his final gambit resulted in the destruction of 18 more vessels without inflicting any significant damage on the human battleship. The USS Defiant's point defense systems had proven as deadly as its main weapons when engaging the light Zephyrian cruisers. Admiral, we have only 14 ships remaining, his tactical officer reported with obvious defeat in his voice. The human vessel shows minimal damage from our coordinated attack. Their defensive systems appear capable of engaging multiple targets simultaneously. The alien commander realized that his fleet had been completely outmatched by human military technology and doctrine. The species they had dismissed as primitive had revealed weapons and defensive systems specifically designed to counter every advantage that advanced alien technology could provide. Transmit general surrender to the human vessel, Kexthul ordered with the bitter taste of defeat. Perhaps their species understands the concept of honorable surrender and will allow our surviving ships to withdraw. Captain Morrison received the alien surrender transmission on his bridge. As the battle entered its 6th hour of continuous combat, his ship had sustained damage from hundreds of plasma lance hits but remained fully operational, exactly as human military engineers had designed. Translation systems indicate the enemy fleet is attempting to surrender, reported the communications officer. They are requesting permission to withdraw their surviving vessels from the combat zone. Morrison studied his tactical display showing the 14 remaining alien ships scattered around the battle area. The enemy fleet had been reduced to less than 7% of its original strength, while his battleship continued to operate at near maximum combat effectiveness. Cease fire on all weapon systems, Morrison ordered his crew. Maintain defensive readiness but do not engage enemy vessels unless they resume hostile actions. The USS Defiant's weapons fell silent for the first time in 6 hours as the human crew assessed the results of their first major engagement with an advanced alien civilization. The battle had demonstrated the effectiveness of human military doctrine against supposedly superior alien technology. This is Captain Morrison of the human battleship USS Defiant, he transmitted to the surviving Zephyrian vessels. Your surrender is acknowledged. All surviving ships will immediately withdraw from human space and transmit complete details of this engagement to your leadership. The captain paused as he considered the implications of the message he was about to send to the alien command structure. The battle had revealed human military capabilities that would fundamentally change how other species viewed human potential for warfare. Inform your superiors that this engagement represents standard human naval doctrine and combat capability. Morrison continued his transmission. Our ship operated within normal parameters throughout this engagement. Any future hostile actions against human colonies or vessels will result in similar responses. Admiral Kexthul received the human message with growing understanding of the magnitude of his species. Miscalculation. The human captain was stating that the devastating battle they had just experienced represented routine operations rather than exceptional circumstances or desperate tactics. Acknowledged human vessel, Kexthul responded. Surviving Zephyrian ships are withdrawing immediately. We will transmit full combat reports to hegemony. Leadership regarding human military capabilities. The remaining alien vessels began their withdrawal from the battle zone, carrying news that would transform the Galactic Council's understanding of human warfare. The species they had dismissed as technologically primitive had revealed military doctrine evolved through centuries of total industrial warfare. As the Zephyrian ships limped away from the engagement, Area Admiral Kexthul began composing his report. For the hegemony leadership, the humans had not simply built better weapons or stronger armor, but had developed an entirely different philosophy of warfare based on sustained industrial combat rather than tactical elegance. The humans designed their ships not to avoid battle, but to absorb enormous punishment while delivering even greater destruction to their enemies. Kexthul dictated to his recording systems. Their military doctrine assumes prolonged engagements where industrial capacity and system reliability determine victory, rather than initial technological advantages. The alien admiral realized that human warships represented a fundamental challenge to every assumption that galactic military strategists had made about space combat. The USS Defiant had demonstrated that properly applied industrial warfare could overcome technological superiority through sheer persistence and overwhelming firepower. News of the battle spread quickly through galactic communication networks as surviving Zephyrian personnel reported the engagement to their respective commands. The human victory had revealed a species capable of building weapons that could challenge the established military order of the galaxy. Within days, every major galactic power received detailed reports about human military capabilities and the devastating defeat of the Zephyrian Third Battle Fleet, the species that built ships like mobile fortresses and treated 6-hour battles as routine operations had announced their presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible.